Hello friends, Matt Ort here, author of Save Your Company, Don't Feed the Beast. I've been, of course, observing a lot in the last 6 to 12 months and seeing kind of the wheels fall off of American healthcare more and more each year. I wanted to share a message, just some observations that hopefully you'll find of value. We know that healthcare plans, especially with removal of the subsidies, are getting a little spendy, as we may say in Wisconsin. I don't know if that phrase or that word is used outside of Wisconsin, but what spendy means is pricey or overpriced or overly expensive. So we have a lot of cool sayings in Wisconsin. We also use the phrase a horse apiece. And if you're not from Wisconsin, you may say, what does that mean? It's essentially a synonym with 6 in one hand, a half a dozen in another. Means the same thing, a horse apiece. I'm sure there's some history there that goes back. But employers especially find themselves on ones with fully insured plans, maybe others find themselves switching between one carrier and another carrier and another carrier, and really it's just still a losing game. It's right, who can give me the best of the worst deals kind of thing. So I think it's a really interesting time in our country related to healthcare, and just want to talk about what I believe is a root cause that I think just so often gets missed. So many other things are talked about. Now we're talking about the private side, the commercial side of healthcare, not the government side, Medicare. Probably some things apply, but I'm going to focus on the other half, on the commercial half today, which covers about half of American lives. So just some notes here, but if you know me, you know my Toyota background, so the way my brain works, I worked at a Toyota supplier. I watched them come in and absolutely, just with a couple coaches, transform a manufacturing plant, safety, quality, delivery, just skyrocketed new customers. Toyota, Honda, that led me, actually, I was recruited there to the Toyota flagship plant. That Toyota experience overall was like a blessing and a curse. It gave me a blessing to see things I wouldn't have seen probably otherwise, that maybe many don't see. It was a curse in that it creates a lot of frustration, in that maybe the errant problem solving or a lack of effective problem solving and so forth. So I won't get into that today. But that is a fascinating topic that changed my life, those years that I spent there. But if we look, at least one, we could do a fishbone diagram, but if you're familiar, but one of the root causes, if not perhaps the most prevalent root causes, is that we are overspending for healthcare services, right? So there's two sides of a health plan. There's how you fund it, which is relevant and important, the risk management side, how you fund it. Now, if we're talking about a self-funded health plan, the employer's funding that with some stop loss on the top to protect against extremes. If it's level funded, structured differently, more feels like a fully insured plan. They're all different, these level funded plans, but the employer, it's still more or less self-funded or like self-funded, and fully insured is not. Fully insured would be where the insurance is taking on everything. And a health share, actually, it's a national pool. But a health share, it's critical. We say this year's claims is next year's premium increase. It's critical for all these plans to manage besides the insurance plans, which is a different story, but critical to manage the claims spend, or your next year's premiums skyrocket. Now, the big insurance has done this well. They hide the purchasing from the consumer, right? I hit my $3,000 deductible. I don't care what it cost. I don't even ask the question. That's very damaging, because they go into their enrollment meeting the next year and find their skyrocketing premiums, and they wonder why. So we need to look at total cost as well. So that's key. Now, if you're a problem-solving expert, especially root cause, you may say, Matt, that's not the root cause, because we could keep asking why. They call it 5 whys. We could keep asking why until we can't ask why anymore. And that's true, but the problem is you're just getting into the corruption of the beast, which I'll talk about at the end, right? Why are we overspending for healthcare? There you're getting into unfair games, monopolistic games, and it doesn't hardly pay. It's just corruption. So I'll talk about that at the end when I identify the beast and talk about the beast here. So the key to this, if you were overspending in anything, how would you fix that? We'd say, well, we need to shop for value. Well, Toyota, I'll go back to Toyota, defines value as anything the customer is not willing to pay for. So all the waste, as they would call it, all the things that don't actually provide value to that car, in this case, they're selling. If we're talking healthcare services, right? I want to pay, make sure the doctor's paid fairly. There might be some supplies, but I don't need 22 middlemen right, collecting off of that that I'm not willing to pay for. I'm even, in fact, in big insurance, I'm even paying for lobbyists that are working against me, as many as 7 per representative in DC. So I want to trim that. I want to keep all the things of value. Here's the definition of Toyota Lean. I want to keep all the things of value, and I want to shed or discard or cut away all the things that aren't of value that I'm paying for, that I'm getting ripped off, right? So that's a quick definition of lean. It works really well in our personal life. It works in anything. So if we say shop for value, now these are out in networks. So again, big insurance has been very crafty. Now, if you're a self-funded health plan, you can change your health plan design and make these within. Health shares are getting more creative and realizing this. They're not here yet. They're not there yet. They're not here yet. They're not fully understanding, but they're starting to. They're realizing that this year's spend is next year's premium increase, and how they keep their premiums down and the increases down. So they'll sometimes waive half of the IUA, the equivalent of deductible or similar to, or they'll cut it in half, or whatever it may be. They'll reduce the IUA so that the member, if the member has to travel an hour, it's still worth them to do it. Some can even facilitate reimbursing travel and different things like that. I've had examples just in the last week. $50,000 procedure, a surgery that we could have gotten for 6 to 8 in Milwaukee or Oklahoma or Indianapolis, right? Even western Wisconsin, not that far. Another procedure that was quoted at $30,000, we could have gotten for 6. So that's a big difference. If that was a car, if you were shopping for a car, right, would you say, oh, not that big a deal? You might if you're not paying for it, and that's a lot of the feel here. We need to have consumerism, and we need buy-in from these health plans. Need to be structured in a way, restructured. Most aren't, 99% aren't. Plus, that if I'm a good consumer, I gain. But if I'm a bad consumer, and I need to be taught how to do that and supported through it, but then I pay more, right? That I need to be a good shopper, just like we do in everything else we buy. And part of that is mindset, right? Often, what do we say, right? Do you have health insurance? What we really need to be thinking about is, am I shopping wisely for healthcare services? In many cases, we're removing insurance from the equation because they're an expensive middleman that's adding little to no value. So we could talk about imaging, right? A lot of the folks in this circle and so forth, those that are doing something, no, imaging is one of the easy ones to pick off, but we're paying, right, $6,000, $5,000, $4,000 for an MRI, or too much for a CT or whatever it may be. That MRI is available down the road now through Kristen Dickerson owns Green Imaging, right, a national network where we can look for affordable imaging. There are lots of resources developing here in the free market game that can help us shop wisely. Those are the same images, those are the same MRIs, same reads, right? Probably newer equipment, not always in my experience, but there's just no reason to spend 10 times too much and have someone just say, thank you, I'm going to put that 90% margin in my pocket, and the 10% actually went toward the value, the part that the customer was willing to pay for. We could take cancer, Benesmart. There's others like this, but they can find affordable chemo treatment, affordable cancer care. There's heart surgery, Oklahoma Heart. These are more rare. Oklahoma Heart can provide a surgery for a fraction of the cost with a high quality surgeon, maybe better, in my opinion, than these hospitals that don't tell you the price, and you get these hundreds of thousands of dollars hit on your self-funded plan or on your stop loss. Pharmacy is another one. There's middlemen involved there we can talk about, but pharmacy, just getting transparency and having a PBM with their sole role of sourcing the drugs at the most effective cost and quality, with the definition of value, cost, quality, delivery. So a lot of times the drugs can be shipped to Canada and shipped back and still be purchased at 25% of the cost. Same exact drugs and so forth, and other things that can be done there. So I'm going to close with this recognition of the beast. If you've read my book, I don't try to go around pointing fingers and criticizing and realize, and I'll say, first of all, I'm against no one. The FMMA is against no one. What we do stand for is the right values. Things like transparency, healthy competition, the exclusion of monopolies, the busting, trust busting of monopolies. We just want the consumer to have a fair chance, and then in a free market, which happens very naturally, the government's only role is to trust bust or break the monopolies, which they're not doing, probably for two reasons: because of campaign funding and the power of this great monopoly, and also that I think we've stopped this or slowed this, but we're indirectly, the government is subsidizing the monopoly, right? It's the high cost. So we'll jump in and we'll subsidize it. Well, why is the cost so high? Why is the cost so high? Because of the corruption, right? So whether it's employers paying most 80-20 for the health care, whether it's the government steps in to subsidize, the government is us, by the way, taxpayers. That's not government's money. That's our taxpayer money. If we're overspending on this spendy health care, it doesn't matter who pays for it. We're all going to go broke. We need to get to the root cause and get the prices down. And that's shopping for value. The other part of that is recognizing the beast, the middleman, the ones adding no value. In fact, there's lawsuits out there now that some of these big house brokerage firms, one of the three parts, when I should make a beast with three heads, one of the three parts of the beast is big house brokerage firms. I have friends within those, so no offense, my friends, we can still be friends, but I think there's a lot of damage being done there, and these excessive fees and invisible fees and all this money that's being collected and all these games that are played, deep analytics and all sorts of things, but really very few solutions actually being done because their house is built on those huge commissions and huge overrides for volume, and they're actually have become, I have friends who have said they become slaves to big insurance. So one of the heads of the beast, if you will. The second is big insurance, right, is probably the leader of the beast, if you will, or one of the three heads, and pulling out money and then in cahoots with the hospitals, manipulating the hospitals. But the hospitals, I've asked over 10 executives that I've talked with over the years, I'm like, I want to believe that you've just been manipulated, executives that have left hospitals, right, that couldn't do it anymore. I want to believe that big insurance has manipulated you, and right, you've just kind of been pushed into this, and every one of them very quickly always pushes back. No, they know exactly what they're doing now. They're overcharging in an $82,000 surgery. One person said insurance will take 40, hospital will take 40, the doctor maybe gets 2, or the administration plus, right? So we have a case where they're not working for us, and I think the wheels are falling off their game because the marketplace and others, healthcare is becoming absolutely unaffordable. You pay $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month for premium, and then you have a $10,000 deductible. You haven't even used healthcare yet, and that's for catastrophic coverage, but that may be more than somebody makes. It may be more than they can afford. They've got house payments and groceries and everything's went up. And so until we stop, right? So if you go somewhere and if they even give you a price, but that surgery is $30,000, most people still are yet not aware they can get that for $4,000 at an independent surgery center. But until we stop feeding the beast, until we start patronizing the folks trying to do it right, that share the price, it's a very competitive price and typically better quality because they're handpicking their team or they're handpicking their surgeons, until we stop feeding the beast and telling them with our pocketbook that it's wrong, if we just say, well, insurance will cover it, or it's no big deal and we pay them, then they're going to keep doing it. I just talked to someone who went in for a mammogram to a place this morning, and they said, well, what's the price? And the person at the desk said, I don't know what the price is. I said, do not patronize them. I'll get you a really affordable mammogram where you'll know the price for cash and so forth. But we've just got to stop patronizing that group. So there's a lot of great people working in those groups, even in big insurance, even in big hospitals, even in broker houses. I think they're aware, I think in most cases, but it's really the leaders at the top, the ones setting the tone for that, and the others are following. My daughter works for a hospital. She's not involved in the finance side. Her job is to take care of people, and she does a great job at that. But there is a known, right? This is known. This isn't accidental. This isn't inefficient. This is all very well designed. And the theme of how we fix this, I'm going to finish with this point of this probably too long video or extra long video. But we look at a monopoly and we say, okay, we've got a monopoly. They're controlling us. It'd be equivalent to like one grocery store in town, right? If you had one grocery store in town that was charging 10 times what they should, we've got maybe 3 options to change that. We could go to the owner We could say you're bankrupting your own community and everyone here around you, and you need to stop, and that person doesn't stop, probably because they laugh and say, I don't care, I'm winning, I'm winning. Maybe that's worked somewhere. I don't know of any examples. The second is we could go to the government. Oh, we need some more laws, right? Make it more complicated. We need ACA. The Affordable Care Act actually skyrocketed costs. Should have been called the Accessible Care Act. It did increase coverage, but even the different case scenarios. But it certainly wasn't the Affordable Care Act. It skyrocketed cost. And the last is, by breaking the monopoly and creating a true free market, kind of a natural order, if you will, where there's healthy competition for high quality and the lowest cost, and where value is measured. If the quality is absolutely top notch, well, maybe that's worth a little more, and the customer is willing to pay for that. But this network is a guise for the monopoly. It's a wall. It keeps you from shopping. It keeps you from knowing. And so we've come to the conclusion at the FMMA there'll be more communication about this, but that the current system is probably a good word, because system implies one, or monopoly is not fixable, nor is it reformable, because the ones who are winning, right, the beast, the three heads of the beast, will not let it be fixed. And so the two entities that are suffering the most are the patient and the doctor. Many doctors are leaving and creating these affordable options. How ironic is it that the two critical entities for a true healthcare transaction, not an insurance transaction, a healthcare transaction, are the ones losing, and those are the ones that are going to need to solve this. The employers are part of that buyer group, and then the sellers, especially the independent doctors, are going to need to do that. So how do we fix the grocery store? We add another grocery store. What are we doing in healthcare? We're adding new surgery centers, new primary care. We're building another free market system, not monopolistic system, but a natural free market economy that's next to it, that's offering alternatives for healthcare, and that's the way we fix this. So support those folks. Don't support the folks that are crushing communities. And over time, and we've seen this happening pretty big time in Wisconsin, pretty big time in Oklahoma, pretty big time in Texas and other states. Other states are just being run over by the big truck. So I'll stop there. This is probably longer than I planned, but I just wanted to share those thoughts. The root cause is that it's too spendy. We're overspending. And if we don't get to that root cause and start shopping wisely and paying true rates for healthcare, then this is only going to get worse, not better. So have a great day, my friends. God bless.